Well, howdy, everybody, and welcome to episode 20 of the Pixar Post Podcast. As usual, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, of course, obviously Pixar-related news, and we have to address the Good Dinosaur release date being pushed. We're going to talk about the Toy Story of Terror TV commercial that was just released. We're going to talk about some Pixar Motorama news from Jay's Garage and a couple other fun little anecdotal things, but we wanted to kick right off into this episode 20 with some Monsters University news. Pretty cool. On October 21st, the Hollywood Film Awards will be taking place, and it was already announced that Monsters University will receive the Hollywood Animation Award. And essentially it was chosen because the creator of these awards picks certain ones that are already determined that are in certain categories. And he said that Monsters University and Pixar continued the trend of what they've done in many years past and took leaps and bounds technology-wise, made an amazing film.
Yeah, basically that it was a phenomenal job in animation.
Exactly, and Dan Scanlon and, of course, producer Corey Ray will be there to accept the award, again, on October 21st. So as that date gets a little bit closer, we'll be having, of course, more news on that. But wanted to kind of announce that only because it's the kickoff to the awards season. So
it's
obviously,
so exciting.
Yeah.
I can't believe the awards season is basically here.
Right, in just a couple short months, it's going to be full on with, we got the Annies, Oscars, BAFTA awards, the list goes on
Everything.
and on. Right, so it's going to be an exciting year to see how Monsters University pans out and how it will hold up essentially against...
I'm really interested actually in the technology awards, just the technological aspect of everything with all of these awards.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if some of that helps it accelerate a little bit more, and where they land in lighting and writing and all those kind of things. But yeah, obviously the stiff competition this year is going to be against Despicable Me 2. Obviously, you know how we feel. Our listeners, you know how we feel about it. We clearly want Monsters University to win, but obviously we can't deny the fact that for a lot of people, Despicable Me 2 was a hit in theaters. So obviously we can't say anything's going to be a runaway. But if any indication is like the Hollywood Film Awards and this Hollywood Animation Award, it would be great if this was an indication that this is how the award season is going to go for Pixar and for Monsters University.
Right.
And we'd love to see Dan Scanlon accepting awards and all these kind of things on behalf of Pixar and hearing what he's going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, it should also be noted that in the Hollywood Animation Awards, Pixar has won many times before, certainly not every year, but in 2003, they won for Finding Nemo, 2006 for Cars, 2007 for Ratatouille, 2008 for WALL-E, and 2010 for Toy Story 3, and obviously now 2013 for Monsters University. So pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Now, talking about movies, that had come out, this is a little bit of a shift in the news world, but what we thought was really cool about this is an interview that MoviePhone did with director Ron Howard. So how is Ron Howard making a connection into Pixar news? You'll see.
This is very interesting. How is he?
Yes, so he was asked by MoviePhone what if he could direct and create any movie that's ever been made, what would it be? So he lists off his first 4, and we're going to pick up this clip so you can hear what the director of Apollo 13, Da Vinci Code, A Beautiful Mind, these amazing
live action films, what he has to say about this. And we just kept his 4th choice and then leading into his 5th choice right here. So here you go.
My all-time favorite movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Just amazing characters, tense drama, surprises, humor, fantastic performances, and any Pixar movie. They're just great, just top to bottom. I admire what they do. They're so imaginative, they're funny, they're emotional, and the work is just always, just kind of supreme.
Okay, so that's pretty high praise coming from a director that many people feel is one of the best, and especially does a lot of high drama.
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily think one of his top 5 movies that he would want to be involved with would be any of the Pixar films.
Right. I think it's really interesting that he's a live action director, and now he's singing praises, not only singing praises, but saying, hey, I would like to be a part of it. Of being in animation at Pixar.
Right.
I think that says a lot about Pixar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it provides a little bit more of that. It goes to show you that even amongst outside of us, as fans, that we're, many people consider us to be, tainted because everything we think about is Pixar and how great we love Pixar and all these kind of things. But this is outside of the Pixar arena. This is a totally different arena, and yet people from the live action world are looking in on Pixar, even with some of that, the rose-colored glasses, like, oh right. Man, they're so amazing. I wish I could be a part of those.
Yeah. And I wish I could just, step in there and,
right, and he talks about
be a part of it just for a minute.
Right, and he talks about the quality being top-notch and all those kind of things. So it's pretty cool. So I just thought that was a fun little tidbit, that to bring up, because I think that's, high praise, and,
I think it's a good thing to share. I just think, again, it just kind of shows you how many people really do appreciate what Pixar does.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving on from overall Pixar news, as we get closer into October 16th with the release of Toy Story of Terror.
Oh, gosh.
The marketing is in full swing right now. A couple places have talked about, touring plans, their Twitter page. They talked about some banners that have been released where it shows all of the main characters. I think there's 7 banners. Yeah. Shows all the main characters.
I think that was at the Hollywood Studios at Disney World, I think is where those banners are.
Yeah. Yep. So the banners are out advertising that it's coming October 16th on ABC, and then they're also showing all the characters, so that's cool that that's out there. We obviously saw last week, and we talked about it on episode 19 of the podcast, with the Sky Broadband commercial, which was also advertising that it was going to be coming in the UK in the fall. Mm-hmm. Animation Scoop also received today an exclusive screenshot showing Potato Head, Rex, Woody, Jesse, and Buzz all kind of surrounded around Mr. Pricklepants, and they had kind of a worried look. I got a sense, and you can tell me too, but I got a sense from the screenshot that was still within the trunk.
Yes, because I feel like Pricklepants, or Mr. Pricklepants, is telling the story and kind of spooking them a little bit, because they all kind of look like, oh gosh, oh, it's getting kind of scary. I feel like because he's, the storyteller, he's the thespian of them all.
Right.
So I feel like he is, captivating them as an audience, but kind of spooking them out.
Yeah. So just to level set a little bit, we know that the Toy Story gang, that not all of them, but many of them are selected by Bonnie to go on a trip. They're going to Bonnie's grandma's house, and on the way, Bonnie's mom's car gets a flat tire. They have to stay at this hotel, which they determine is haunted. And on the way there, they're watching some scary movies in the trunk of the car. So that's where we think that screenshot is. It's in that setting mm-hmm. where Mr. Pricklepants is, like you said, the thespian, setting the stage and carrying that story through.
Setting the scene.
Right, exactly. And what's funny is there's a new advertisement that came out as well. It's a TV advertisement. So it's been online. We haven't physically seen it on TV yet, but I'm sure that we will as it approaches. So let's just take a listen to that clip, and then we'll tie that into the screenshot as well.
Have you seen Potato Head? What? No.
And so it begins.
Wednesday, October 16th.
This place is haunted.
What? It's haunted?
All your favorite toys are back in a brand new adventure.
Bum, bum, bum.
You'll laugh. You'll scream. You'll... disgusting. From the studio that brought you Toy Story 3.
Oh, nuts.
Comes Pixar's first television special.
Ew, I stepped in something.
Disney Pixar's Toy Story of Terror. World premiere Wednesday, October 16th on ABC.
Can't wait.
It is such a great trailer.
Can't wait.
Gosh.
Literally beyond excited. The part where, so obviously that's what we were talking about with, him, with Mr. Pricklepants being the thespian, and he says, and so it begins.
Exactly. I think that's like where he's starting to tell a story, or maybe that's where the drama is unfolding.
I think that's when the first character, because I think he predicts.
You're right. I think you're right.
Right. That's where the first character goes missing. And so it begins in the haunted...
Yes.
In the haunted hotel, motel. So that's hilarious. And then, dun dun dun, when he does that. And then, okay, so if you guys also heard on there's one part where you hear like a little and then, so that's a cat Pez dispenser that essentially, instead of puking out of their mouth, they lift up their head and they puke out a Pez. A Pez candy, and it lands on the ground. Hilarious.
Genius.
And, it's funny is, typically, we don't really...
It's like a hairball.
Yeah,
to me, that's how I took it.
Right, it's kind of like a little hairball there, too. But, typically we don't necessarily go for the potty humor, the bathroom kind of humor. But that one is just so funny just because it's so unique that it's like a Pez dispenser that would be spitting out a Pez.
You nailed it right there. It's so unique. It's so... I love the story guys at Pixar and just like how they think of these things, or if it wasn't a story guy, if an animator, if it was the director. That is so funny to me because it's thinking outside the box, but also it's so relevant. It's like, of course it's a Pez dispenser, and of course Pez dispenser, they talk by opening, lifting their head and puking that way. So funny.
I know. So what Rex's comments, did you like those where he's like, haunted, and then he's like, oh, I stepped in something?
I know.
So what's the goo? It's in a hotel. Are they just like thinking it's some crazy goo, and is it just like extra shampoo that's spilled on the ground or something?
Yeah, it's probably, like you said, like shampoo or conditioner, or
yeah, but it's funny.
Or just like candy or something, like
right. Well, we know the
melted
goo.
Candy.
The goo is kind of a recurring thing.
Oh, okay.
So the goo is whenever there's like somebody that goes missing, it's tied to that. So I think they're thinking it's something, and I think it's just something innocent. And they're just tying it to it.
Yeah, maybe. Or it could be like grease or something. I don't know.
Who knows? My thought was like, and again, we won't know until October 16th, or in case, if by chance we happen to see it early, which I can't see how we would. But I was thinking it was just like on a maid's card or something like that. And when they were cleaning the room, like some shampoo spilled or something like that. I don't know, but that's just what came into my mind when I was first thinking about it. But I love that. Now, the other thing that I like at the end of it is they say that the world premiere is on October 16th. So what's cool about it is that clearly, they're going to be playing it a lot.
Yes.
So even if you did miss it, which obviously we're telling everybody, set your DVRs, VCRs, wherever you got to go.
Yeah, mark your calendars.
Yeah, whatever you got to do. Ask Siri to remind you.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be talking about it like crazy that night. And then obviously leading after that, there's going to be multiple repeats when they say world premiere. So I was happy to hear that.
The Disney Channel, as soon as it's probably over, an hour later, I'm sure it's going to be on the Disney Channel again.
Right.
Which is awesome, because if it is, we're watching it a second time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a third time. And fourth time.
And we'll clearly be recording it as well.
Yeah, because you want to see what's... there's going to be hidden things in there. I mean, just like any Pixar film, just because this is a 30-minute special on TV doesn't mean that there's not going to be Easter eggs.
There will be.
Oh, can you imagine? Like, what if there's like a Party Source Rex reference or something like that?
I can't see that happening.
I know. But just something.
But that would be cool.
Just
anything
little
quirky
things,
like that.
Or, maybe an MU reference, or I don't know.
We may even see like older toys that may be just like in the trunk or something like that.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe there's like a Pizza Planet cup in there or something, just to like throw back a little bit or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But we shall see. But anyways, moving off of Toy Story of Terror for now, the other thing that we thought was kind of cool news and snippet-wise this week was Jay Leno. Obviously, people know him from The Tonight Show, but he has a web series and a separate website for Jay Leno's Garage. And at Pixar's Motorama this year, although it may have happened on July 12th of this year, Jay's Garage sent out a crew to go check out Motorama and talk to some of the cars. So let's just listen to the intro of the video. We were going to play the whole thing. I wanted to play the whole thing, but then it became too visual looking at the cars. So we're going to play the intro to it and kind of cut a little bit. And then we definitely will put it in the show notes, but you need to watch this. Really cool who they interview and who they talk to. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Here's Jay Leno kicking it off, and then passing it over to Pixarian Jay Ward, who's kind of the curator of the Motorama.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Jay Leno's Garage. I'm sure you've heard of Pixar Studios. They're the studios that do Cars and Cars 2 and all those great Pixar films. Well, John Lasseter is the genius behind those movies. And every year, he and Jay Ward do a car show called Motorama. And Jay Ward is sort of the guy who kind of put the whole thing together for John. And it's a private car show just for Pixar employees. They don't let any media in, but we were the only people invited to bring our cameras up there and take a look at some of the cool stuff Pixar has. So it's really fascinating. So I'm going to hand it off to Jay Ward. I couldn't go because I got this day job thing. So I sent the guys up, and Jay Ward will be your host. Jay, take it away.
Thanks, Jay. Welcome to Pixar Animation Studios. You are at the Pixar Motorama. This is our 12th Motorama. It's an employee car show, barbecue, company lunch with live music. We used to have a really small employee show at our old grounds. And then when we moved here, I said, could I take over the show? And they said, yeah. I renamed it the Pixar Motorama. We got a little budget, we got a live band, we got t-shirts, and kind of turned into its own show, and I just kind of made it what I wanted it to be, and it's blown up into this. Let's look around and see some fun stuff.
So there you go. I just thought it was kind of cool to at least get some of that intro to tease you to want to see the video, because it really is neat. For instance, right from there, he goes and talks with Bob Pauly, who's an art director, and Bob Pauly has his car, which is essentially Finn McMissile. Mm-hmm. It looks just like Finn McMissile, so that's really neat. And then Bob Pauly, they also talk about that he designed the Motorama logo for this year as well. So that was kind of neat just to see who did that. They also talk with John Lasseter, which is obviously cool. They show two of his cars, a Ford Falcon and a Model A car that he brought. They talk with Stephanie Hamilton, who's a promotions manager at Pixar, and she has a motorcycle. Then they also talk with Mark Walsh, and we were pleasantly surprised to see that. They talk with him about his Autopia car. And then cars, plural, yes, 3 of them, which is really interesting. They talk about kind of like how it's modeled after the Corvette and those kind of things. And then Jay Ward himself also talks about his car, which is kind of it's a hot rod, but it's his little rat rod where he put together, the inside's kind of rusted out, and he talks about, should he upgrade it, should he keep it the way it is. Really cool stuff. You don't have to just be a car or automotive fan to watch it, because obviously you're seeing these interviews with Pixarians themselves. And the video is about 15 minutes, so definitely worth the time. Again, we'll put that in the show notes. So, obviously, the main reason that we wanted to have today's podcast, and the big thing that came out today via an LA Times interview or article, was that the Good Dinosaur's release date has changed. Now, obviously, over the last couple podcasts, we've been talking about news and updates regarding the directorial change and how it's not Bob Peterson leading that process anymore, and it's a team of directors from John Lasseter, Mark Andrews, Lee Unkrich, and the original co-director, Peter Sohn. Well, today, I think a lot of people kind of said, oh no, like collectively, comments were coming in all day, whether it be through Facebook, Twitter, emails, Instagram. It was crazy with people going, oh no, what does this mean? What does this mean? So let's talk about some of these things. And Julie, you had one of the greatest things that I am going to amend to the post, but we're going to talk about that coming up as well. Okay. So the date change. Let's just talk about that first off. It's changing from its original release date from May 30th, 2014, so this upcoming summer, to November 25th, 2015. So right off the bat, when I heard that, I was going, wait a minute. That's Finding Dory's release date. So are they going to have 2 films literally at the exact same time? So then you see a little bit further that Finding Dory has now been pushed to summer of 2016. Right. So obviously, not only is this news today affecting hopefuls for The Good Dinosaur, but it's also affecting fans of Finding Nemo that were anticipating this spin-off of Finding Dory. And once you start shifting everything around, it makes you wonder what else is going to happen. So the next comment, the question that came through from everybody was, what's happening with Inside Out? Like, everybody's so protective of Inside Out.
It is interesting how many Inside Out questions we did receive today. So that's the next one.
Right.
Is anything happening with Inside Out?
Right, exactly. So that one is still on track for its June 19th, 2015 release date. So that's going to be our next movie. So that's a long ways off. So Finding Dory, The Good Dinosaur It's also important to note, as we talk about the fact that it's now being pushed back 4 days shy of a year and a half exactly, it's also important to note that this movie was already pushed back once. It was originally supposed to be released as a holiday release for this year, so the November-December timeframe of 2013. And because of changes that needed to happen, it also got moved to May of 2014. So with it being pushed back, there have also been some comments that I've seen out there, questions that have come in regarding what does this mean for the future of the project. So if you look at films like Newt, that has had many date changes, and then over the long term, it was canceled. So I don't know that we can say that yet. The Newt didn't have the directorial changes that this has had, and they have not put the resources on it. With John Lasseter stepping in, I'm not going to worry about that as much.
Yeah, I don't know if Newt ever got as far as the Good Dinosaur.
No, it didn't. But it had a release date, an estimated release date, and it was far enough along that they were starting things. But obviously that was because of the similarity to Rio. That was one of the rumors, is that it was similarities to Rio and those types of things. So I just wanted to bring that up as our viewpoint, that we didn't think that it was necessarily going to be canceled.
No, I don't think so.
Just because it had multiple date changes like Newt did.
Yeah. No, you know what's funny is I guess I take a completely different approach on the date change for The Good Dinosaur. I honestly don't think anything's wrong with it. I think now 2015 is going to be the year of animation. 2015 is going to be phenomenal for Pixar, animation, just everything in general. If something's not working with the story, I believe Ed Catmull was quoted saying it, that they're not going to release something and have it be like a flop, or not just a flop, but just a horrible film.
Right, and his exact quote was, "Nobody ever remembers the fact that you slipped a film, but they will remember a bad film."
Yes.
Our conclusion was that we were going to give the film some more time.
Yes, and you know what? I applaud them. Because now people are going to be like, what does this mean? What does this mean? 3 months from now, people aren't going to be remembering that it got pushed back. I mean, obviously, hardcore Pixar fans will remember.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's not going to be a film in 2014. But we need to think about it and maybe collectively realize that, Pixar's about to do their first 30-minute special on TV. Does this mean that maybe next year we'll see another 30-minute special? Does this mean that the short that was going to be on The Good Dinosaur now becomes a short that's released on TV?
Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about, and that's the thing I was saying was the best thing. I hadn't seen anybody talk about it. We were all expecting a while ago that Party Central, the short that was announced at the D23 Expo as well, and was also brought up on the Animation Fascination podcast when they had their interview with Austin Madison, it totally made us, first expectation was that it was going to be on the Monsters University DVD coming out at the end of October. And at the expo, they said, no, this is going to be ahead of The Good Dinosaur in theaters. So with this short already done in the can, are they going to really sit on this until November of 2015? And is the relevance to Monsters University still going to be there at that point?
Right.
Or how are they going to do that?
Yeah, you know what? I'm really 50-50 on this. Like, when I brought it up to you, half of me says that yes, they'll wait because the Monsters University characters are still going to be very much beloved. And I do think that maybe just as they make car tunes and they make Toy Story tunes, I think MU tunes is quickly becoming the next thing.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah, I really do hope so. Please, please, please. But the other half of me is like, oh gosh, that would be awesome if they could release it, on the Disney Channel or on, ABC. I mean, granted, it's only like a 6.5, 7-minute short. It's not that long, but it would be something, to keep all those Pixar fans and, the hardcore Pixar fans and just like, Disney Pixar fans in general, keep their, appetite going.
Right.
For new animation. Plus, I really want to see it. I'm so excited. And, it's Kelsey Mann's directorial debut.
Right.
And having met him at the Monsters University press event, I am blown away. He works in the story department, and he was so fascinating. It was my favorite class. So I'm really excited to see, his take and, what he does, directorial-wise with the film.
All right, give me a high five. That was really good insight. I love it. I didn't think of all that stuff. Obviously, just at the high level, talking about what'll happen with Party Central, but also just talking about that it may be, that it could still be relevant like they do Cars tunes. I didn't even think any of that stuff, so I thought that was great.
No, I do think it still could be relevant, but then you also have to think that with a 50% of me that thinks that it's still going to be attached to The Good Dinosaur when that has its theatrical debut, is how are they going to shift all the shorts that they already have in production?
Right.
Because the, feature shorts take a long time. I mean, we know, the Blue Umbrella, that wasn't just done in a year.
Right.
It takes years.
Well, Partysaurus Rex was 2.5 almost.
Yeah, so it takes years, and not only of just production, but pre-production, and, when they pitch these ideas.
Right.
And, the rework that goes into that. So even though it's 1.5 years away for The Good Dinosaur, to then say, okay, well, whatever was going to be in front of, this movie is now getting moved here. Dia de los Muertos, do we move that short now onto that? Because that's now going to fall after The Good Dinosaur.
Well, and it makes you wonder, bringing up Dia de los Muertos, not to totally shift off of the shorts, but it also makes me think about Lee Unkrich. With his involvement in The Good Dinosaur, how much is that taking away from his future film based on Dia de los Muertos?
That's a good point.
So I started to think about, not only was I talking about that there was a lot of changes with The Good Dinosaur over time and date changes, but even if, let's just say, that The Good Dinosaur gets canceled and or it gets pushed again. Now, I personally would believe that this is it. To me, in my mind, if it doesn't meet it now, they're going to say we're putting too many resources into it to push it again, unless it's literally there and it just needs a little tweak.
Right.
Or just a little extra animation or something like that. But in my opinion, even if it doesn't happen, luckily, and this could be a little bit of a safety net for them, we would still have Inside Out in June of that same year.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a little bit of protection for them if they needed to move something and or cancel something.
Right. That'll also be very interesting for award season.
Yes.
Having 2 Pixar films, 2 original Pixar films in the same year.
That would be the first time it would ever happen, and I have been waiting for it because I want to discuss it. And not only do I want to have the discussion of who's going to win, like we're talking about Monsters University, Despicable Me 2, all that kind of stuff, I want to talk about the extra chaos in our minds that would ensue once we're talking about 2 Pixar movies up against each other.
Right.
Oh.
Or if 2 Pixar films would even be nominated together. It might just be one.
Yeah, and then the whole conversation is, well, why did one get snubbed, or did it get snubbed? Was it just not as good? Why did the conversations can go on and on.
I know, and you know what's funny is, I know everyone wants 2 Pixar films a year. I like just having one. I don't mind having one every other year.
Yeah.
They're great. Make them great. You don't need to give me one, twice a year.
Yeah, I don't need to rush it. And I think that was, when you're talking about I don't need one a year. The other question that came through a lot was this Disney's influence? First off, when Pixar said they were going to start doing 2 movies a year, they were saying, is that Disney's influence? And then when they started talking about now moving The Good Dinosaur because they wanted to put Maleficent in its place,
right?
Is this Disney's influence? And I don't think so. And I commented to other people about this too because of Ed Catmull's quote and the fact that, frankly, quality takes time. And if it was Disney's decision, because everybody thinks, whether it's true or not, and I shouldn't say everybody, but for the average Pixar fan, they think that Disney is like a corporate overlord that's telling Pixar what to do and make profits and all these other things. So I don't think that's a Disney decision at all. Because if it was, the decision would be, if you're talking about it from the viewpoint of, if you think that Disney is a corporate overlord that's telling them get profits, Pixar is passing up profits by not releasing this.
Correct.
So that's why I don't believe at all that it has any Disney influence when it comes to this. I think that this is truly a studio decision, and
it's a brain trust decision. I think not just the brain trust, but I think, maybe the overall consensus of people working on the film, hey, maybe it's not going this, whether it be the story department or whoever's in charge of that point, I just think they're like, you know what, this maybe needs to be reworked just a little bit.
I don't know, with a 1.5-year delay, this could be a pretty major rework. I mean, they did Toy Story 2 in even less time than that, and that was a full rewrite, full reanimation.
Yeah, but I guess I see it as we don't know what they're doing or what Pixar's working on for next year.
Right.
So maybe us saying, gosh, it seems like, 2015, why do we have to wait so long? Geez. But then we don't know what they're doing next year. They could be working on, a bunch of tunes. They could be working on more of their feature shorts. Finding Dory. I mean, when that was released, that first date, I was like, my gosh, that seems so quick.
Aggressive. It was very aggressive.
How are they getting that? So how do we know that it's not both films that still need more time?
Right.
We don't.
It certainly
could be Finding Dory and The Good Dinosaur that need work. So all next year, everyone there is basically knocking themselves out working on those two films.
Right. And Andrew Stanton has mentioned that in the past, where if one movie is in production, they only have so many people that are working on these things.
Right.
So if one is affected, it affects everything down the line. But you're right. It could also be the fact that both of them needed more rework in the first place.
Yeah. And whether it be rework or just, manpower.
Yeah.
Helping. Yeah. I mean, I do think that, Finding Dory, when that was released, when that was announced, I was like, my gosh, how... like a 1.5 years? What?
Yeah. It was very aggressive, and I think that this is a little bit of a learning lesson for Pixar, because of the fact that in the past, we haven't had as much criticism when it comes to Pixar releasing films, because they held everything much closer to the vest, and they didn't say when everything was coming out.
Yeah.
But now we've got this huge outstanding list of what's in the works. I mean, we know of like 4 or 5 more Pixar films at this point, out to 2016, 17.
Yeah, and 3 that are unannounced.
Right, so it's pretty... Wasn't it just 2?
Oh, maybe it was 2.
Yeah, 2 or 3. Just not remembering off the top of our heads. But it's still crazy to think, like, this might be a little bit of a learning opportunity for them. Maybe they're not going to talk about so much and reveal so many of their cards, so to say, and keep them a little bit closer to their vest moving forward.
Yeah,
because when these changes happen, it sends rifts down the line. I mean, that's one of the reasons that, Apple was so successful in keeping things quiet and building that buzz. But then they also fight the fact of, why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you saying anything? And I think Pixar was going through that same kind of thing. They were keeping the Steve Jobs, since he was in charge of it, everything so quiet.
Right.
And then after Steve Jobs left, people were like, listen, we need to know more because investors need to know what's going on. And I think that pressure forced the announcement, which then in turn kind of went, we got to back this up a little bit. Right. So I think it's a little bit of a jockeying and a learning from their perspective. Again, who knows? But all we can do as podcasters, as bloggers, is speculate based on our best of the knowledge that we have and our opinions. So
I see both sides of why they would announce it and why they wouldn't announce it. I like both ways, but like I said before, just like I don't need 2 Pixar films in a year, I don't even need 1 Pixar film a year. I could do every other year because I think they're phenomenal.
Right.
I mean, how many times do we rewatch them? I feel like I'm spoiled already if we get them every other year. But to have them announced, it does create buzz.
Right. It's a hard thing.
So
it's a hard thing to balance. But let's talk about this. The bottom line is exactly mirroring what Ed Catmull said. If the movie's good, nobody's going to care in the long run. It's a good movie's a good movie's a good movie, and the reputation of the studio is worth waiting if it's necessary.
Right.
So let's end with one final thing that... you have something.
Yeah, I have another thing. We didn't really talk about what we think about the 4 directors that are really working on it.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts?
You mean who's going to take over?
Well, maybe not take over. Yeah, who do you think might take over?
Okay, so I've thought about this a lot.
Me too.
And I think, and we talked about it a little bit on the last podcast, but I believe that Peter Sohn will ultimately be that director, but I believe it's going to be under heavy watch of John Lasseter.
Okay.
Is what I think is going to happen. I think John Lasseter will be not the co-director, but he will be essentially the top advisor who will have to, will be involved in the whole thing. Okay. I would love to see Lasseter step into that role because it would be really cool to see him take on another film.
I agree. He was one of the ones that I was going to say.
But that's who I think is going to be.
Okay.
Your thoughts?
I actually think it's going to stay as a co-directing role.
Between who and who?
Mark Andrews and Peter Sohn. Well, number one, because I really like Mark Andrews.
Well, that's interesting because...
And I'm really excited to see, his perspective back on the screen. Two, because I think Peter Sohn is definitely going to stay a part of it, but I don't know if he'll go full director or if they'll just stay, dual.
Ooh, that's interesting.
But we also know that it made me think of that Mark Andrews said that he was already working on a project when he won the Oscar and when he won the Golden Globe.
Right.
So was he maybe already kind of shifting into this role?
Oh, I don't know. Was that too early?
I mean, it was very... who knows how long this was.
Remember the Oscars? January?
Yeah, who knows in like March. February. But who knows how long this has been...
In the works?
In the works, that it's just come about.
Well, if it was in the works that long ago...
I don't know, it's just an idea.
I don't know that I agree with that one. But I like the thought process. I just don't know that I agree that it was that early. He might have been in super early stages. We don't know again.
Yeah, we don't know.
But I wonder from his perspective if he would want to do that, because obviously just being involved with Brave, he would be kind of like the comeback guy, like, I've got to come in and clean this thing up. Does he want to, is the movie that he's working on, would this be his new project and he would have to say, I have to shelf my own personal project to come in and help out this one?
Right.
I mean, obviously he's a team player. He would do what was necessary, but it's interesting to think about.
Yeah. I don't think Lee Unkrich will stay on it because, just like you said, I think he's going to start focusing on the Dia de los Muertos.
I think he has to if it's going to continue to stay on the release date plan.
Right, and that's 2017?
I can't remember now off the top of my head. I believe that
now it's two in 2016, right? Yeah.
2016. Yeah, it was 2016 for Dia de los Muertos, because then it would be Finding Dory got pushed to 2016, and then Dia de los Muertos as well. So that's interesting to think about. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was the story side of things, and this is what I was going to say we were going to kind of wrap with, was about the story elements. So I was thinking about that on the Up DVD, there was that background screen that everybody was like, what is this dinosaur concept art? And it caught my eye when I was thinking about this again in my mind, because in that original concept art, there's the dinosaur, which is a brontosaurus type. We just call it brontosauruses from our era, but the brontosaurus type dinosaur like that. And then they still had a young boy in it, but the young boy was not as tiny as Spot. And there was also an adult, a clearly adult-sized person. So, thinking about the story...
Not caveman looking.
No, they looked like straight-up people. Mm-hmm. So, it makes me wonder, did this start as what our original expectation was, that we're coexisting with dinosaurs? And then somewhere along the line during...
the Flintstones-esque.
Right. And after those date changes, did it then shift to be Spot, the caveman, non-English speaking character that goes along with Arlo's journey? And is that when the dinosaurs became farmers? So it's like, it seems like it already has shifted from what it was to what it is.
You're right.
So how much is it going to shift again? And that's what I was wondering, and I wanted to see what you thought. Are the dinosaurs still going to be farmers? Let's start with that question.
You know what? I do think they'll still be farmers. I will kind of throw this out. The Good Dinosaur, the art of the Good Dinosaur book is going to be phenomenal, because it's going to have so many different storylines.
Right. Here's how it shifted. Here's how it shifted. Here's how it shifted.
Now when you were just saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish we could pre-order this now. I do think they'll still be farmers, but I do think that maybe the people will also be speaking.
Okay, so does that mean that dinosaurs as well as humans are speaking?
Okay. I kind of think so, yeah.
Okay, because that could be an interesting shift.
Or do the dinosaurs speak to each other, and it sounds like kind of like Ratatouille.
Right, where you just hear like...
Yes, but it's when they talk to each other.
Right. But if that's the case...
But then do Arlo and the little boy, do they have some special bond where they can understand each other?
I guess that would be kind of along the lines of Arlo learning to understand Spot's grunts and stuff.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that shifts, though, won't it?
Yeah. I mean, what do you think?
My personal opinion... I have to take myself out of it a little bit, because part of me feels like they can't back out of the farmer thing because of the fact that it was already announced at Expo.
Well, see, to me that doesn't bother me.
Okay. If
that were to change just because it was announced at the Expo, things change, and for I think people to like hold them to it, like, hey, you said it, it's set in stone. No.
Okay.
Yeah,
right,
that doesn't bother me
So
at
if
all.
that's the case, if I take that concern off the table, I think they're no longer farmers.
Okay.
And I didn't think about, but I do like your idea. It would be like a Ratatouille kind of thing, where the dinosaurs can hear each other and understand each other, and the humans can hear each other and understand each other.
But not each other.
I like that. So that was something that I was grappling with in my head. Originally, I was thinking that the dinosaurs just don't talk, but I think that would be a hard thing. So I like that balance of the Ratatouille comparison. But personally, I don't think they're farmers anymore.
Okay. You don't think that maybe they're farmers, like helping the people? They're not like, kind of like the Flintstones, how the dinosaurs were like appliances, or they were like help move rocks or something, and like the people like...
So you got a difference between when he worked, so we're talking about him working at the quarry, where the dinosaurs were essentially their machines.
Yes.
And then you have Dino, who was his pet at home.
Right. So more of like machine kind of things.
Is that potentially...
See, to me, that might be I don't think it's that, because I think that's too much Hanna-Barbera. It's too...
Right.
It draws too many similarities to that. So that's why I think they stay farmers.
Okay. All right. Well, this ought to be interesting to see how it pans out. So we shall see where it goes from here. But, we obviously wanted to talk about, when we heard this news today, we said, holy cow, today was a day that just exploded with Pixar news. We were super excited about it. And because of it, we wanted to make sure we got this podcast out today, so that way it would be relevant to listen to for the rest of the week and talk about. So certainly you've heard us gab about this and what we think may happen. Obviously, again, all speculation. We don't have any inside information, and we're just saying what we personally feel. But what do you feel as our listeners? You can either throw it on the post for the podcast, you can talk about it on our post that we confirmed that the date change was happening, or talk about it on the Pixar Post forum. We've got a lot of ways for you to communicate with us. Yeah. Oh, and then also you can always...
Email, Twitter, voicemail.
Exactly. I was just going to bring up the voicemail specifically. In fact, let's throw that out there. We want your opinions. Give us a call at 415-799-POST. Written out, that's 415-799-7678. The phone number is right on our homepage. Leave us a quick voicemail, just a short one, talking about how you feel about the date change. If you want to talk about that, you can talk about potential, do you think the dinosaurs will still be farmers? You can talk about who the director will be. Those are the three main questions that we want to hear from you about. You can also feel free to, if you're thinking of something else, we want to hear it. We're going to play some of our favorite ones on our upcoming podcast, episode 21, and we want to hear from you guys, so let us know. All right, so we'll be excited to see what everybody comes up with. Well, that about wraps up episode 20 of the Pixar Post Podcast. Signing off as usual, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And be sure to stay tuned to PixarPost.com all week for the latest Pixar news.